Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syrian Analysis. I'm your host, Kirk Almasian. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's special live stream, which is going to address the recent email and document drops of Jeffrey Epstein. First things first, this is for educational purposes, and it may include some conspiracy theories. So take whatever I'm going to tell you with face value, try to do your own research, and also try to formulate your own convictions based on your research. What I'm going to do today, basically, to shed light on some of the dark spots of these email leaks or the email drops. And we have to also understand before we discuss everything that this has happened by the Justice Department in the United States. Therefore, we have to take it again as at the face value or with a grain of salt, because they have decided to drop these emails and these documents now at this particular timing, and also they decided the type of content that we are watching and reading nowadays. There could be millions of more logs and documents and emails that they are holding, and we don't know when or if or when they are going to publish those documents. As our moderator says, please hit the like button and share so that this stream also reaches to wider audience. And I'm thankful that our last streams and our last guests, the Iranian guest Ali Alizada, the Ihsan Safarnajat, and others, they received a lots of applause and a lots of appreciation by you. And also, I appreciate you guys all, whether you're watching this on YouTube or on Rumble. In order to support this type of work, the easy thing to do just to hit the like button, subscribe to this YouTube channel. A few days ago, I spoke to our friend William Vanvagenan, the author of Creative Chaos, the CIA role in destroying Syria, and he is also a researcher at the Libertarian Institute. And he has been digging into many other cases, not only Syria, one of which is, of course, 9/11. And he spoke the other day with me on live on Syriana Analysis. We spoke about also Noam Chomsky. And he had a very strong opinions about Noam Chomsky, negative, strong opinions, let's say. Some people were agreeing and some people were shocked by that. However, I am going to, if you were shocked by that, I'm going to shock you even further that these recent drops of the Epstein files, unfortunately, included even more heinous and even more brutal and even more, how to say, disappointing, actually, relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and Noam Chomsky. So, what do we know so far? We know so far a lot, and hopefully that we will know even more. And these documents basically released only 2 days ago. It included emails from, of course, the U.S. House Oversight Committee and DOJ files, and these documents basically illuminated a very close, actually, relationship between Noam Chomsky and Jeffrey Epstein. And back in the day, this was not as acknowledged as it is now after these recent drops, right? And this relationship spanned from around 2011 to at least 2017, which means well after Epstein's conviction for soliciting prostitution from a minor. Jeffrey Epstein and Noam Chomsky engaged regularly. They have had in-depth discussions on topics like global finance, the Oslo Accords, politics, including Trump's election in 2016, and music. With Chomsky describing the exchanges as, quote, most valuable experience, quote, ended, in an undated letter of support, praising Epstein as, quote, a highly valued friend, quote, ended, and highlighting his curiosity and connections, such as arranging a private meeting with the former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak to discuss the 2001 Taba talks. Epstein offered Chomsky use of his New York apartment and New Mexico ranch, attended dinners together, including with Woody Allen, and facilitated events where Chomsky was photographed with figures like Steve Bannon. Very interesting. Chomsky's wife, Valeria, also communicated warmly, sending birthday wishes and expressing hopes for future meetings with Jeffrey Epstein. Financially, Epstein transferred $270,000 to Chomsky in 2018, 10 years after he was convicted as a child molester. And this was related to his late first wife's estate. In 2017, Epstein sent a DNA test kit to Chomsky and his wife. After 2018 expose on Epstein's crimes, he sought Chomsky's PR advice, receiving counsel or advice to ignore the hysteria and develop a thick skin, drawing parallels to hashtag #MeToo accusations. Chomsky has stated he met Epstein occasionally and regretted the association post 2019 arrest. Anyways, so according to the recent drops, Chomsky didn't only meet with Epstein in friendly meetings. He also advised Epstein on how to deal with the media hysteria after the recent allegations against him and recent accusations against him, which led to his arrest. So the relationship goes beyond the friendly relationship and goes beyond the business relationship, and this reaches to the level of political and media advisory to Jeffrey Epstein, well knowing that Jeffrey Epstein was accused and is a convicted child molester. This is in 2008. And I think in 2017 and 2018, before his arrest, everyone in the US, from the intellectual class, from the journalistic class, from the political class, from the financial class, from the pharmaceutical industries, everyone with a little bit of connection and a little bit of knowledge and information and logic, everybody knew what Jeffrey Epstein is and was, or was, because some people now say that Jeffrey Epstein is still alive. In any ways, I think Chomsky, some people say he cannot speak nowadays, he's too ill. But I personally do not hate, usually, like, I don't hate on, let's say, Chomsky or others. I have myself benefited from his lectures, and I watched many of his lectures on YouTube, university lectures and speeches and debates. And we cannot but all agree that the man has a special intellectual capacity, right? And everyone among us needs a lot of training and a lot of knowledge and information and education and practice to become like someone like Chomsky. However, at the end of his life, now that he is almost dying, because the rumors are he is very, very ill, the timing of these revelations before he died, I think it brings some justice, a little bit, very small justice. I'm not saying that he is a child molester. I'm not saying that he is a rapist. I'm not saying that he was on the island and abused any underage woman or he was in any type of sexual predator. I'm not saying all these things at all. All I'm saying is having this close association and relationship with someone like Jeffrey Epstein itself, it puts you in a really shady position, the least to say. And also your relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and if you were also meeting with Ehud Barak, and whether or not the Israeli government had any sort of influence over Chomsky through Epstein, and whether or not this influence has come to the fruition. For example, our friend William Vanvagenan says that one of the main arguments of Chomsky has always been to put all the blame on the United States, and like you're basically opening a light on one direction. Meanwhile, there are multiple factors in these ongoing, let's say, wars and destructions around the world, and Israel is definitely one part of this. Let's say the conditions that was created, at least in the Middle East. And when Chomsky comes and also Chomsky convinces Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah in the past, Nasrallah has an old interview saying basically that Chomsky and Chomsky's teachings and arguments basically convinced him that it is the United States who controls Israel and not the other way around. Now, my opinion is, of course, I have said a long time that the US and Israel are like two organs of the same body. However, there is a strong argument that Israel has enormous influence over the United States, and Israel lobby has enormous influence over the United States. So, when you publish a book, for example, Manufacturing Consent, and you explain the role of the corporations in shaping public opinion and creating narratives through the media outlets, but you don't really mention the organic and true and objective, actually, influence of the Zionist lobby over the media outlets and over the corporations, then you are deliberately, for some people, this would look like after this relationship with Barak and Jeffrey Epstein, that you have deliberately taken out this from the context so that you don't put all the blame on the Israelis. Now, in our conversation with William, I have made an error when I mentioned um, Chomsky did his honeymoon in an Israeli kibbutz in 1945, because in my mind I thought I said either 45 or 46, because in my mind I don't know why I confused between the end of World War II and the creation of Israel. Israel was created in 1948. So Chomsky was in doing his honeymoon in Israeli kibbutz in 1949, just 1 year after the creation of Israel. And I found that very weird to share this story in public, especially in Beirut, in front of hundreds of new grads from the American University of Beirut, in a place where the country officially and also with the presence of Hezbollah do not recognize the legitimacy, let's say, of the political entity of Israel. So it felt to me back in the day, and this is in 2013, I believe. Yes, I think it's in 2013, summer of 2013, during the graduation, in front of also political science grads. Basically, he bragged about his honeymoon in Israel in 1949 or 1948. And back in the day, this was something very controversial, because this was very new concept, that to create a state over the presence of other people, especially 1 year after the Nakba. That's why back in the day I was a little bit raising question marks about Chomsky and whether or not he is trying to, throw some carrots for the people to think about, to eat the carrot and start thinking about the issue that in 1948 or 1949 he was in Israel in the kibbutzes, and he did a great vacation with his wife and a honeymoon, and he was probably driving a car or something, he mentioned back in the day. So since then, I also followed Chomsky's development in his speeches, in his interviews, and I was truly shocked when he argued against the withdrawal of the US occupation forces from Syria in 2017, because he said that the United States army should stay there to protect the Kurds, the SDF. And if you know who stood behind the SDF, there was a lobby inside the United States under Donald Trump, strong Zionist lobby. They have persuaded Donald Trump and, of course, the administration, the DOJ, and the Pentagon, in order to start a new militia in Syria, a new proxy force in Syria called the Syrian Democratic Forces on the eastern bank of the Euphrates. And it consisted of mostly Kurdish fighters from the YPG. And the plan was to balkanize Syria, basically. If Jolani occupied the Idlib and created a de facto mini state there, then they would also slice 1/3 of Syria, which is rich with hydrocarbons, rich with fuel, rich with wheat and cotton, basically, and cut it from Syria, basically, cutting the 50% of the revenues of the country, right? So now that we know this relationship between Chomsky, Epstein, and Ehud Barak, I'm only wondering and asking myself the question whether Israel has persuaded or compromised Chomsky to say these things. Because in my opinion, those are very absurd things to say for someone like Chomsky, who has struggled against, allegedly, American imperialism. And back in the day, in 2017, had Trump withdrew from 1/3 of Syria, this would have allowed the Syrian government and the SDF and the Kurds to reconcile and manage this region jointly, instead of allowing now the Jolani forces to take over these regions and subjugate the Kurds. So what happened is basically what Chomsky has pushed for basically is for the enslavement and the subjugation of the Kurds now under the Jolani regime. So I just wanted to make these points about Chomsky because, look, I am not going to mention any names, but some people are making excuses for Chomsky by saying basically that he had a great influence on them academically and journalistically and ethically, and that they are not going to cancel him or they're not going to abandon him, basically, right? And in my opinion, it is one thing basically to be positively influenced by Chomsky, and it is another thing. By the way, now that I'm speaking to you, could you please write me in the live chat if my webcam is frozen? Because I have changed the browser and sometimes it is again frozen. Can you please tell me now if my screen was frozen? I'm looking into the live chat. I'm not going to name names, Habibi. Frozen. Okay. So it's the same problem, unfortunately. I don't know how to fix this. I just changed the browser and still it is doing. Yeah, I know it is fine now because I'm looking into my stream yard tab. But once I go to another tab, it just. Anyways, some people are making excuses, in my opinion. The argument that, but he wrote important books isn't a moral immunity passport, especially when it comes to someone like Jeffrey Epstein and in this relationship with. It's good now. So now that I frozen again, okay. Well, I don't know what to do, to be honest with you. Every time I go to a different tab, it is just freezing. Is it from the webcam? Is it? I changed the browser. I changed everything. I changed the cables. This is Noam Chomsky, basically with Steve Bannon, right? And why I'm bringing this to your attention? I think this is a very important photo to understand something that is was going on in my mind for a long time, and that the people who are on the left or on the right, they are controlled opposition from all sides. And for example, Chomsky now, in my opinion, after reading these documents, it it gives the impression that he was a controlled opposition on the left, right? And this is Steve Bannon, of course, he was on the right. Now it looks like these two guys were really cool together, right? They don't look like they hate each other, although in public they have had a different relationship, right? For example, when Chomsky, after this meeting, 2 months after this meeting, right? So he has met with Steve Bannon, and this is what he said 2 months, only 2 months after they have.
Today, we do.
Let me check this. I have forgotten my volume. Just a second. Let us bring this like this. So this is Noam Chomsky basically talking shit about Steve Bannon just 2 months after he has met with Steve Bannon himself. I'm testing this new, yeah, this would be great.
Today, we are not facing the rise of anything like Nazism, but we are facing the spread of what's sometimes called ultranationalist reactionary international, trumpeted openly by its advocates, including Steve Bannon, the impresario of the movement.
So, I think in this case, it is important to note that it is highly possible that these people are playing theatrics with us. They are shit talking against each other, and they're like magnets. What happened is there are people who love Chomsky, right? And there are people who hate Steve Bannon, and the vice versa. There are people who love Steve Bannon and they hate Chomsky. And what happened basically, these two people can polarize the public. If this person talks about that person, it polarizes the public more and radicalizes them on the side of Chomsky and vice versa. It is highly possible that these people also were meeting regularly, like you saw in this photo. And it is also alleged that this photo was taken in one of the meetings with Epstein. So Steve Bannon, Chomsky, and Epstein. A friend of ours in Arabic, I just caught my attention, says, Kevork, Habibi, we watch you from Damascus, and I love when you are in a live streaming together. I love your analysis more than your guests, and I also learn English from you. حبيبي شكرا كثير لك، كلك ذوق حبيبي. الله يعينكم، ما بعرف شو بدي أقول. I just wish you peace, really. Like what is happening to the people in Syria and those who have brains is unimaginable. Like I cannot imagine myself living in Syria at the current moment. There is another thing about Chomsky before I move on. That is very important to me, and that is during the pandemic. And we're going to discuss also the relationship of Epstein with Bill Gates, by the way, so stay tuned for that. But before that, when Chomsky, during the pandemic, he came and he was really radical about the vaccines, for example. I will again, I'm sure my picture will be frozen because I have to just search something in the tab. So stay tuned with me. Chomsky, COVID. I think this video was horrendous. So this is the video I'm talking about, and it is horrendous during the pandemic. This is where I was like, no man, fuck you moment for me when I saw this video of Chomsky.
Okay, we'll move on to question 33, the next one. Air on again. What are your thoughts on mandating vaccines?
Well, it's a mixed story. I think people who refuse to accept vaccines, I think the right response for them is not to force them to, but rather to insist that they be isolated. If people
what does it mean to be isolated? Isolated is to stay at home, to be isolated from community, isolated from society, isolated from malls, supermarkets, schools, public life. This guy during the pandemic was calling for isolating the people who refuse to take the jab. And I'm not telling you to take it or not to take it. All I'm saying is this is not a medical advice, right? But there are serious research about the lack of efficacy of these vaccines and the technology used, especially in the mRNA. Many people raise serious points about this, and especially has shown the data of the lack of experimenting these vaccines and the safety data. So someone like him, now that we know that he had a relationship with Epstein, and Epstein had close relationship with Bill Gates, and he is basically terrorizing people here. He has a moral authority, by the way. Someone like Chomsky has a moral authority, and his voice is heard. And he wants for the people to be isolated if they reject to be vaccinated.
Decide I am willing to be a danger to the community by refusing a vaccine, they should then say, well, I also have the decency to isolate myself. Okay, I don't want a vaccine, but I don't have the right to run around harming people. That should be a convention. Enforcing is a different question. It should be understood, and we should try to get it to be understood. If it really reaches the point where they are severely endangering people, then of course you have to do something about it.
What do we want to do something about it, Monsieur Chomsky? That's the question. What do you want to do? This was the point where I was like, fuck you, Chomsky moment for me. And I didn't even know his relationship with Epstein. I was one of the people who was very, very. I have a detector when everyone in the mainstream press and everyone in the political class, those puppets who they call themselves politicians, all of a sudden read from the same script with the same words, with the same narratives, with the same solutions. You don't need to know where is the conspiracy. It's quite obvious when everyone agrees in this so-called elite class about the problem and the solution, and they are banning people who say otherwise, deplatforming them, debanking them, and isolating them from society the same way Chomsky has been calling for. It's quite clear, guys. It doesn't need a genius. You don't need to go and read all the data and all the research to understand that there is something fishy about it. And I'm not saying there is no virus. All I'm saying is that these people, when they amplify a problem because they want to make you afraid, and once you're afraid of your life, the life of your beloved ones, that's why they were like using the argument of your grandmother and grandfather and your mother are going to die if you're not jabbed, because they want you to act irrationally during such times. And when you see that their main convincing strategy is to make you afraid, you start asking questions. Why are they doing that, right? And you resist. You say no. That's what I did. But back in the day, I went crazy to see how many rational people, how many people with clear-minded people have been persuaded. And when I raised these issues with them, they were like, they looked at me like I'm a crazy person, you know? And now in 2026, I think it's quite clear that we were not the crazy people. The crazy people was people like Chomsky. And this was the point for me of no return when I saw Chomsky saying this. I was like, fuck it. I'm done with him. But you know who was invited by Epstein and he rejected? Like in Arabic, we say كبر بعيني كتير, meaning in Arabic, he grew in my eyes immensely. Like my respect has grew so much for him. Despite my criticism of his position on Syria, however, I think Norman Finkelstein deserves a big applause, huge applause actually, for rejecting Epstein's invitation. So Epstein and Alan Dershowitz reached out to Finkelstein, but Finkelstein called them pedophiles and threatened to strangle them. So this is the response of response of Norman Finkelstein here, as you can see where it is written, my guess. I will just probably do it like this. Or let me just take this document. Just a second. Let me see if I can even make it bigger for you guys. So I think it is bigger now. So in this document here, he says, my guess is, this is the response of Norman Finkelstein, by the way. He says, my guess is if Epstein put your daughter at age 15 in such a position, you wouldn't publicly describe him as a friend and a person of integrity. In fact, I would hope that you would promptly throttle both Epstein and Dershowitz. This is in February 2015. Norman Finkelstein is sending a letter and an email and saying, my guess is if Epstein put your daughter at age 15 in such a position, you wouldn't publicly describe him as a friend and a person of integrity. In fact, I would hope that you would promptly throttle both Epstein and Dershowitz. That's a guy who deserves an applause, seriously. Norman is based. Yes, Norman is based. I will never ever criticize Jimenez again for his opinion on Syria after showing at least you know that this guy has a moral compass. And everyone can be wrong in politics on one thing or another thing. But having this strong moral compass, unlike Chomsky, is very admirable. And it is rare nowadays in this so-called elite class, whether it is intellectual, academic, journalistic, because I'm in this so-called field. And once you're in it and you see the corruption of other colleagues and other friends and how they can be bought and sold. One of them, he sold himself only recently, apparently. And he was a guest on our show 2 times. And apparently he sold to the Israelis. And he's running 24/7 nonstop. I don't know if he's sleeping or not, or he has some software which is posting for him nonstop against Iran, against the posting all pro-Israeli talking points about Iran. And only a few months ago, he was running a YouTube channel. And in this YouTube channel, he was arguing for the formation of a multipolar world and a new axis of resistance, which includes Iran, Russia, and China. And now he is just peddling 24/7 Zionist talking points against Iran. I was so surprised, no longer shocked, to be honest with you, because I'm used now to see people just selling themselves. Once you build a certain platform, a certain number of followers on X, especially nowadays, it's very important, X, apparently for some reason, for many of the people who want to change or shift public opinion online. I've been approached by a company, for example. It's crazy, guys, what's happening there. And they wanted me to quote post their work on X. I was shocked to see the name of the company, to be honest, because I'm not going to name them. And I saw the email. It's like, do they really know my opinion about the country which this company is residing in? Because not about the country, but the politics of this country. I was, to be honest, surprised to see them offering me an offer. They were like, yeah, you can... No, what do you mean by Tarek? Tarek, of course, is not compromised in any ways. This guest that I'm talking about, he was on my show 2 times in the past, for a long time ago, probably a year, 2 years ago. After that, he was not on my show. Anyways, so companies reach you when they see you having big influence. And what they ask you is basically, oh, we could send you, for example, one of our publications, let's say whether it is an article or it is a video. And if you can quote post it so you can amplify the number of the viewers or the readers of the article, and they pay money. They pay very good money. And I was like, I sent them an email and I said, just to play this game with them. And I said, I'm interested in your offer, but do you guys really know my politics and my opinions? And that was the last email. I sent them again an email and I said, I'm following up on your offer. What happened? And they never came back to me afterwards. Why I'm bringing you this example, and I'm basically, probably my influence is relatively smaller than other profiles who have like 500,000 followers, 1 million followers, 2 million followers on X. I have like how many? 160,000. I mean, it's a big number still. And they offer good money, man, if you want to sell your soul. And believe me, there are lots of buyers if you want to sell your soul on X. Let's go to one of the people whom I personally dislike and despise. His psychopathic, let's say, projects. and he is trying to play God with us. One of them is, of course, Bill Gates. Bill Gates was mentioned heavily in the Epstein's file, but let's start with his recent revelations about him and the collusion between Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Gates when it comes to the vaccines and the pandemics. So, as you may know, guys, this is an investigation, a mini investigation done by Sayer Yigmi. He is the founder of Green Med Info, senior advisor to Maha Action, chairman Global Wellness Forum. I mean, I should follow him. He's following me. It looks like great in his investigation. He says the DOJ just released thousands of pages of Epstein files. And buried inside them may be one of the biggest bombshells no one is talking about. The blueprint for a 20-year financial architecture designed to turn pandemics into a profit center. Offshore vaccine funds, pandemic reinsurance triggers, donor-advised fund structures designed to profit under the cover of charity, stimulation programs, career pipelines into pharma, and the World Economic Forum. All built years before COVID-19, all running through Bill Gates, JP Morgan, and Epstein. We now have the documents. Let's first retweet and like this. So, first things first, the bombshell number 2 out of 7. Bombshell number 1, offshore arm for vaccines. In August 2011, so this is how many years? 9 years before COVID-19. Jeffrey Epstein emailed Mary Erdos, the CEO of JP Morgan's $2 trillion asset management division, outlining a Gates-linked donor-advised fund. His instructions were, however, we should be ready with an offshore arm, especially for vaccines. The CEO of JP Morgan Asset Management didn't flag compliance. She asked for answers before the 31st. She got them the same night from a convicted sex offender. This is the image that they are talking about. The bombshell number 2, the quiet part out loud. The same month, same email chain, Epstein writes to Steli and Erdos. The tension is making money from a charitable organization, therefore the money, I will basically maybe do this so that you guys can see even better. The tension is making money from a charitable organization, therefore the money-making parts need to be arm's length. The architect of this structure, convicted of sex crimes against minors, is explicitly acknowledging that the vehicle is designed to generate profit under the legal cover of charity. Bombshell number 3, pandemic as an investment category. In May 2017, 3 years before COVID-19, Boris Nikolic, who is Bill Gates' chief science and technology advisor, emailed Epstein and Gates about donor-advised funds and writes, back in the day he wrote, it might be a great path forward for some key areas such as energy, pandemic, etc. Pandemic listed like energy, a standing investment vertical, not an emergency, so they were considering like a portfolio strategy. Bombshell number 4, the parametric trigger, January 2017. An iMessage thread from Epstein's phone. An associate list career options and one stands out. Join Swiss reinsurance team developing health products. Did one for pandemics help develop parametric trigger. A parametric trigger is a financial instrument that automatically pays out when pandemic is declared. Developed by someone in Epstein's career placement network. 6 months later, the World Bank issued its first ever pandemic catastrophe bonds structured by Swiss Re with exactly these triggers. Coronavirus was a listed peril. Imagine my shock. Gates requested Epstein in writing. In August 2013, 5 years after Epstein's conviction, an agreement letter addressed to William H. Gates states that Gates specifically requested that Jeffrey Epstein personally serve as the representative of Boris Nikolic. Gates waives conflict of interest, provides broad indemnification in writing. He had access to every law firm, every advisor, every institution on earth. He chose a registered sex offender and put it on paper. And finally, the question you weren't supposed to ask: nobody builds a fire station after the fire. What these documents reveal is a fire station built beside the factory that stores accelerants, owned by the same people who wrote the building code. The patents, simulations, the insurance triggers, offshore vehicles, career pipelines, all operational before COVID-19. The question isn't whether they planned a pandemic. The question is what structural safeguard existed to ensure they didn't profit from one. I mean, for me, it was the years between 2020 and 2021, 2022 versus the last year of the pandemic. It showed me clear signs of collusion between this billionaire class and also the pharmaceutical industries and the policies implemented and executed against the people's will and against the people's interests. And that's why I started asking the question, is it only profit? Because these people have built a structure, they have built a hierarchy to benefit from any possible pandemics, right? And if they want to benefit from a pandemic, it is in their interest to sell as many vaccines possible, right? Or to centralize, let's say, some of the business ideas. Just an example. During the pandemic, for example, Amazon made enormous wealth, right? Above the wealth that they already had. And one of the reasons for it, because most of the shops were closed in the streets, so people started ordering online. This has centralized the shopping patterns and the shopping behaviors of the people. This has created more people trying to go online and build their businesses online instead of building it on the ground. This has increased the number of people who work from home, right? So it has changed. It has had also behavioral changes in the people. One of which is, I personally, for example, back in the day, I went mad a lot. Like I'm not a person who can really sit home all the time, and I'm not allowed to go to the gym. I'm not allowed to go to the restaurant without a vaccine passport, or I have to show them a test to get inside. Those were really crazy times for me, right? But it was also, in my opinion, an opportunity. Now I realize it and I notice it to accelerate the building of this Syriana analysis project for my benefit, and also for the benefit of the people who would like to have better understanding of what is going on. So it's always a double-edged sword. But what they have tried to do, basically, they have tried to create panic. They have imposed solutions on the people, including forced jabbing, or basically engineering fear and telling you, oh, you cannot come to work. Like I have friends who are doctors. They work in a hospital, for example, right? And they told me, I bet we had to take it. We cannot work without that. And I have friends who want to travel. I bet we cannot travel because we're not vaccinated. So what they did, basically, they isolated you from your activities as a human being and your right for freedom of movement, for your right to walk in the street, in the park, on the shore, to go for skiing, to eat with your family outside, to meet with your family. Like they were absurd laws, like more than 4 people from the same household or 2 households cannot meet in your own apartment. Do you notice the amount of intervention in people's affairs and limiting your freedoms with because of these policies that these billionaire psychopaths have promoted and designed earlier, before the pandemic? And now that we know a lot about these Epstein files, how can we trust these people and their solutions? How can we trust Bill Gates and his vaccines? And I'm not arguing, by the way, against the vaccines, but those are people talking about a possible pandemic like COVID-19 in 2015 and 2017. How can I trust someone like Bill Gates with any of his vaccines when he literally tried to drag his own ex-wife? So Epstein files claim Bill Gates sought to drag his wife back in the day, Melinda, after sex with Russian girls. So in one of the documents, it shows that Bill Gates was begging for antibiotics from Jeffrey Epstein in order to give it to his wife, his ex-wife, without her knowing, because he have had probably unprotected sexual affair with Russian, I don't know, hookers, minors, nobody knows, and he has contracted sexually transmitted disease from them, and he was so worried that his wife will discover. So he was going to drag her, or he probably dragged her with with antibiotics. If this guy is taking antibiotics from someone to drag his own wife, how can I trust him to manufacture any medication, any vaccine, and put it in my arm? Kein Fall. Es gibt keinen Fall, we say in German. It's something that is no way, no way. Yes, no wonder she divorced him, really, because she knew a lot, she discovered a lot, and she divorced him. Another very vile and deprived thing we have discovered in these Epstein files, and this is, let me again put this like this, or again bring this document here. Let me check. So this is a document basically. Let me again bring this document. I'm just trying to bring you a closer or bigger. Let me see if I do it like this exactly. So this is an email. We don't know who sent it to who, but this is from interview of purported Epstein victim, and this is they basically hide the sender and the receiver of this email. And somebody, so this is basically, so a male survivor of Epstein's abuse has publicly claimed that George Bush Sr. raped him and that he witnessed helpless infants being literally torn apart. This is now an email, says, thanks, I didn't realize Bush raped him too. Okay. I would like to add a few other points disclosed by the purported victim. This is a guy who claims that he was a victim of rape by George Bush, a gay rape. While on this yacht, he witnessed African American males having sex with white blonde females, all of whom were bleeding during intercourse. He was a victim of a type of ritualistic sacrifice in which his feet were cut with a scimitar but left no scarring. On the yacht, he witnessed babies being dismembered, their intestines removed, and individuals eating the feces from these intestines. He was also raped by George Bush. What is it? George Bush 1. Is this George Bush like the son or the father? In any ways, so guys, when on this show, for example, this is Bush Senior. So when we on this show say that these people are criminal psychopaths, I think we are really being very generous with them. They're more than that. As you can, if these allegations are true that these people were raping underage girls, doing some satanic rituals, sacrificing some of them, killing them, dismembering them, eating the flesh and the organs of babies. If those allegations are true, I think we are faced with even grimmer reality that they have created and imposed on the rest of the world. And I'm not surprised, and I'm not going to say that is not possible what they have done, because I think the people who used atomic bomb against Hiroshima and Nagasaki and killed hundreds of thousands of people, there was no reason and need for it. I think those people were psychopaths, criminals. I think the people who used Agent Orange chemical weapons against the Vietnamese farmers and killed thousands of them by suffocating them, those were criminal psychopaths. I think the people who killed 500,000 children in Iraq with the sanctions and justified it, those are criminal psychopaths. I think the people who instigated this terroristic war against Syria and killed 600,000 people in its discourse are criminal psychopaths. And now, above all, we learn that these people rape, kill, bury, eat human flesh in satanic rituals. What, like, I mean, it's just, I'm out of words. What to say to these people? And how can we trust these people? And how can we bring these people accountable? And what's the plan? What's the plan of the people of the world, of the concerned citizens of the world? What's our plan? It's like we are just going to read this stuff, consume it, absorb it, and forget about it. These people are still in positions of power. Some of them, for example, one of them was the ambassador of the UK to the United States. Elon Musk is in the emails. He wanted to go to party. In the emails, he sent Jeffrey Epstein asking him if what is the best time to come for wild parties. Whether he was on the island or not, I don't know. Elon Musk, Donald Trump. Donald Trump continues saying, I have nothing to do with him. And he has like, you go and check yourself, probably 100 photos with Jeffrey Epstein. Those people are deprived, sick, psychos, and they're compromised. Donald Trump is, according to an FBI assessment after reading the emails of Jeffrey Epstein, believed that he is compromised by the Israelis. And that's why the Israelis wanted him to come to power in 2016, the same way they wanted him in power now in 2024 or 2025. Donald Trump is the most Zionist president in the history of the United States. And anyone telling you otherwise, guys, whether in the alternative media or in the mainstream media, they are part of the psyoping. They're part of the psychological operation against you. It is quite clear that Donald Trump is the most vile Zionist president in the history of the United States. And what they have done to the Gaza Strip after October 7, whether it is Biden or whether it is Donald Trump, it is, I think, an extra evidence for us to understand the nature of the people we are dealing with. And those people are very dangerous, and I do not blame anyone for having fears and paranoia from these people. Rightfully so, you should be. And however, people need to understand that we are the majority. We are how many? 7, 8 billion people in this universe. Those people are handful. How many? How many of them exist? 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 of them? How many? We are 8 billion people. How can we allow that these people rape underage kids, to dismember them, to kill them, to eat them, to traffic them from one place to another? How can we allow it? How can we allow this to go by without accountability, without justice for, I mean, there is no justice. There is no justice except for putting these people on trial and the death penalty. These people deserve death penalty under the law. So nobody would understand me incorrectly. I cannot find any other way to bring justice. there is a video. I don't know if I should show you this video. Is it allowed? Let's see. This is a model, a Mexican model. This was in 2009, right? Maybe like this. So she's basically claiming, after she ran away from a so-called elite party, that these elites are eating humans. So I think YouTube will be very sensitive about this video. So I will be very careful with the volume and everything. So she's claiming that they ate humans, right? So guys, this woman, she allegedly fled a so-called elite party in 2009, and her name is Gabriela Rico Jimenez. And let me see. So just a second. So her name is, let me see again, like this, maybe like this. Gabriela Rico Jimenez. She's a Mexican woman who, just a second again. She's a Mexican woman who widely accused the global elite of engaging in cannibalism. And she was back in the spotlight again after these recent Epstein drops. And she made huge claims that she was speaking about a party on a yacht. And let me see. No, she was in a hotel party or something, and she fled. And she was 21 years old back in the day, and she has seen outside the fiesta in Monterrey, Mexico. This was in August the 3rd, 2009. So they were in Mexico, basically. Gabriela attended a private party in that hotel, an elite modeling event that brought together prominent businessmen, politicians, and individuals whose names appeared in the Jeffrey Epstein files. All figures favored by secularists. The young woman began screaming that they were eating children. She was then arrested and disappeared without a trace. So basically, after she spoke, she went to public and was recorded in public talking about this so-called alleged party, where it is an elite party, and she claimed that people were killed and they were eating human beings, basically. And this is in Mexico, 2009. And then she was arrested and disappeared. Yeah. She was never seen again after that clip again, by the way. Exactly. So let's go to the last part of today's show, guys. If you appreciate the work I'm doing here, please hit the like button, thumbs up, and subscribe to this channel as we move to the last part, which is very important. And I would like to reiterate on something very important, that this part is about Syria. And Syria was mentioned in this Epstein's files. And in one of the files, somebody emails Epstein, and he asks him if he has any info, if he knows someone who has influence over Assad. And Epstein says not via email. So this is the email. So this email has been sent from Jeffrey Epstein, or from Joy Ito to Jeffrey Epstein. And I will show you. So just a second. So this is Joy Ito sending to Epstein and asking him, I'm trying to get a friend out of prison in Syria. You don't happen to have anyone with influence over Assad, do you? And Epstein says, not for email. So this is very important, this email. And in my opinion, what this email indicates is the fact that Joy Ito has been searching for someone in Syria with influence over Assad, and he was asking Jeffrey Epstein if he knows someone. Now, who is Joy Ito? This is Joy Ito. Let me just show you. So this is Joy Ito. Let me see. Yeah. Joy Ito is, again, bring him here. Again, let's do it like this. Joy Ito is the former director and former professor of the practice in media arts and sciences, right? This is the guy who emailed Jeffrey Epstein. And you will be mind-boggled now what happened with this issue. Joy Ito, he knew Jeffrey Epstein, by the way. He's a pedophile. And he published an apology. This is in 2009. He says, I'm sure that most, if not all of you, have seen recent news stories about Jeffrey Epstein, and I owe it to you to address my prior affiliation with him. Let me bring it a little bit. So he says, I met Epstein in 2013 at a conference through a trusted business friend and in my fundraising effort for MIT Media Lab. So please keep this in your mind. So he was trying to do fundraising for the MIT Media Lab, and he invited him to the lab and visited several of his residences. I want you to know that in all of my interactions with Epstein, I was never involved in, never heard him talk about, and never saw any evidence of the horrific acts that he was accused of. That being said, I take full responsibility for my error in judgment. I am deeply sorry to the survivors, to the media lab, and to the MIT community for bringing such a person into our network. So this guy brought Jeffrey Epstein to the MIT, to the media lab, for fundraising, and he received funds from Jeffrey Epstein. Now, this Joy, what was his name again? I keep forgetting his name. His name is Joy. His name is Joy Ito. So Professor Joy Ito sent this email to Epstein asking if he knows someone in Syria who has an influence over Assad. And probably he's asking him because probably Ehud Barak knows Putin, and Putin could have influence over Assad. So I will show you a picture of, or a Wikipedia page of a guy. This is the guy they're talking about. His name is Basel Kartabil. Basel Kartabil, also known as Basel Safadi, he was a Palestinian Syrian open source software developer. He was detained without trial. Actually, he was put on trial by the Syrian government in 2012 and was secretly executed in 2015. So this guy has been arrested in Syria in 2012 and stayed in prison for 3 years, accused of collaborating with enemy power outside of Syria, enemy foreign power, and executed in 2015 in Syria. And I'm not endorsing, by the way, the execution at all. I don't know what he did. I don't know what he basically worked on the ground. And however, Ito, this just a second, this MIT. So if we see what this guy worked, let me see again, MIT, United Nations. I don't understand why this is not showing. Media, maybe. Media Lab. So here is it. So this guy actually worked for the same company, the MIT Media Lab. He had a position of research scientist at the MIT Media Lab, whose director, Joy, sent an email to Epstein asking him if he knows someone because he wants to release him from Syria. So basically, there is a Syrian guy who works for this media lab, and this media lab is funded by Jeffrey Epstein, and the director of this media lab, he is an associate and an affiliate with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, what did this guy do in Syria? I truly don't know. But when I checked this Ito I'm forgetting his name, Joy Ito's profile. Joy Ito says about himself that he is also a director, a movie director or something. Let me check again. Director, Media Lab chairman. I'm checking because I think he was also making some movies. Film. No, movie. No. So, Digital Currency Initiative. So, it's the venture capitalist, writer, scholar focusing on ethics, governance, and technology. And he is, just a second, let me see. I was trying to do some research about this because he was accused, this Basel Kartabil, by some people in Syria of faking movies while he was working for the Media Lab. And this is one of the videos which he allegedly made. I'm trying to find this again because, okay, I found it. So this movie is allegedly, don't take it from me as a fact, guys, okay? So while he was working for this Media Lab, he was allegedly made this video. Video shows Syrian troops burying a live citizen filmmaker. A video purporting to show a Syrian opposition activist being buried alive by forces loyal to President Assad has been posted on the internet. The video, whose authenticity could not be confirmed, shows several armed men in military fatigues and one in a blue tracksuit and gold watch talking among themselves as they approach a shallow hole from which the blindfolded head of a man protrudes, his body buried up to the neck. So the buried prisoner is coughing from the effort to breathe. The voice of one of the men reports to an officer, "Sir, we dug a hole and buried him to the head." Other voices say this is the animal, while other man reports that he was caught with an ID badge and the camera. Anyways, they wanted him to say, there is no God but Bashar. This is what they wanted him to say. And he said, "Oh, there is no God but Allah." And that's why they buried him alive. This is the video allegation. And I have watched this video again today. And I can assure you with 99% certainty that this video is fake. And this video is staged. Even the accent the people are using inside this video, which they don't show their faces at all, is a fake Alawite accent. Somebody is faking an accent as if those 4 or 5 soldiers are alleged soldiers, they're not even soldiers, are Alawites, and they're burying someone because he refuses to call Assad a god. Some people in Syria told me that this Basel Kartabil has allegedly, I'm not endorsing it, has created this video, and he was captured by the Syrian security forces, and he was accused of collaborating with an outside enemy. And therefore, he was considered to be a traitor or a spy, and he was executed in 2015. But now we are sure that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in this because Jeffrey Epstein wanted to take him out of prison in Syria. And Joy Ito, basically, who was the head of Media Lab at the MIT, who received funding from Jeffrey Epstein, this Basel Kartabil worked for him. It's really sad, to be honest with you. They use these people as like a cannon fodder, burn them inside Syria, and then they're living their lives on the island, right? In any ways, I think those there are two more documents quickly to show you. Those are very important, guys. Again, about Syria and the role of Turkey and the United States with al-Nusra, ISIS, and these terrorist organizations. So this is an email sent from Jeffrey Epstein to Pritzker Tom, or Tom Pritzker. And Epstein basically wrote that Turkey gave al-Nusra advance notice and the US gave a pass to ISIS during its move on Palmyra, Syria. So if you go here, Jeffrey Epstein basically saying Turkey gives Nusra a heads up on Iraqi recruits. This is Jeffrey Epstein saying that Turkey is basically collaborating and coordinating with Nusra about the Iraqi recruits. And as you may know, guys, al-Nusra is now in power in Syria, right? He's also saying Russia gives Erdogan a head up on coup. So they told Erdogan about a possible coup against him in 2016. Us, or US, the US gives a pass on ISIS to Palmyra. This is exactly what John Kerry in 2015 in this leaked audio said, that they were watching the expansion of ISIS from Palmyra to Damascus because they thought that this would exert pressure on Assad and Assad would compromise with them. So they allowed the expansion of ISIS from Palmyra to Damascus. This is the United States of America. This is what Jeffrey Epstein says. The final document, which I'm going to show you, guys, for today, I cannot really ask you if you're enjoying this show because it's disgusting. I'm disgusted myself by reporting about these cases. This is the last document, by the way. This is again sent by Jeffrey Epstein to Ehud Barak. So basically what they're discussing here, it says the Kremlin has at its disposal the leverages that can convince Assad to leave and at least to stop fighting immediately as a first step towards it. The Russian leaders are as clever as we are and fully understand that Assad is doomed and lost legitimacy. It is not too hard to assess why they are reluctant to say it loudly at this. This is in May 2013. So as you can see, this conversation between Epstein and Ehud Barak, Ehud Barak, they discussed the necessity and how to hasten the downfall of Assad. Basically, Ehud Barak asked Epstein for his opinion on an op-ed written by the Israeli Prime Minister, which he intends to send to the American leadership in 2013. The most important point is Ehud Barak considered Russia a pivotal player that cannot be bypassed in any attempt to end the war in Syria, as it is a global power with strategic interests in the Middle East, and it has direct influence over the former Syrian government. Therefore, he believed the realistic solution begins with convincing Moscow to abandon its support for Assad in exchange for a special guarantee. So this is basically what Jeffrey Epstein and Ehud Barak believed. They wanted for Assad to be gone, but in cooperation and collaboration with Russia, because they believe they cannot bypass the interests of Russia, and that Russia has enormous influence over Assad. So after we saw this everything that we discussed today, I think we have to ask the question if Epstein has been a lone wolf or he is an intelligence collaborator. I think most of you already know the answer. But it is important to note that this article in Canary is a very good, making good observations. Basically, the latest release of documents connected to Epstein has reignited a familiar media ritual. Names circulate while royals and celebrities dominate headlines. More outrage flows freely and safely in directions that neatly avoid the structures of power. But beneath the spectacle lies a question that mainstream commentary continues to avoid despite its growing inevitability. Was Epstein operating as part of an intelligence-linked blackmail operation? And if so, for whom? How did a man with no clear business acumen amass such wealth? Epstein partner Ghislaine Maxwell, daughter of media tycoon Robert Maxwell, a confirmed Mossad asset who died under mysterious circumstances in 1991, provides the smoking gun. Multiple Israeli prime ministers attended Robert Maxwell's funeral, with Shimon Peres delivering the eulogy. Former Israeli intelligence officer Ari Ben Menashe has alleged Epstein and Maxwell ran a honey trap operation for Mossad, luring elites into compromising situations to extract favors or silence. This is no conspiracy theory. It is echoed by Stephen Hofberg, Epstein's former business partner, who alleged Epstein frequently flaunted his Mossad connections. Survivor Maria Farmer described the network as a, quote, Jewish supremacist, quote, ended blackmail ring, linked to the mega group, a cabal of pro-Israel billionaires, including Les Wexner, who gifted Epstein his Manhattan mansion. Epstein held multiple passports, which is a spy's toolkit, and reportedly fled to Israel after his first charges in 2008 before securing an extraordinary non-prosecution agreement that allowed him to continue operating freely. It is also worth noting that Israel has long been a legal and jurisdictional refuge for sexual predators, particularly where extradition would expose intelligence, financial, or diplomatic sensitivities. What distinguishes the Epstein case, is not the abstract possibility of intelligence involvement, but the patterned convergence of factors: unexplained wealth, elite access, transnational mobility, institutional protection, and repeated investigative shutdowns. These are not the characteristics of a lone wolf, but of a pernicious foreign influence over celebrities, politicians, bankers, and media moguls. The most recently released files only amplify these suspicions. An FBI report from a confidential source claims Trump has been compromised by Israel, citing leverage through Jared Kushner and Alan Dershowitz. The scale of Epstein's reach is difficult to dismiss as coincidence. Across politics, finance, media, and celebrity culture, the same names, or at least the same circles, recur with unsettling regularity. In politics, the record is already public. Former US President Bill Clinton flew on Epstein's private jet numerous times, a fact acknowledged but persistently minimized. Donald Trump, for his part, publicly described Epstein as a terrific guy who enjoyed the company of beautiful women on the younger side. While these statements are not crimes on their own, they are indicators of proximity. Media power was no less entangled. Senior figures from major broadcasting and publishing empires, from former CBS chief Les Moonves to media baron Rupert Murdoch, surface repeatedly in the documents and testimonies, either through social proximity, shared intermediaries, or financial overlap. Epstein didn't merely socialize with media elites, he embedded himself within institutions capable of shaping coverage, suppressing stories, and disciplining dissent. When journalists attempted to pursue the story aggressively, they encountered legal pressure, editorial resistance, or sudden loss of access. Flight logs and visitors' records name Hollywood stars like Leonardo DiCaprio, Naomi Campbell, and Kevin Spacey, alongside tech titans such as Bill Gates. While some deny involvement in illicit activities, their proximity to Epstein's web implies potential leverage over public influencers who mold cultural discourse. Similarly, major institutions including JP Morgan, Chase, and Deutsche Bank continued to service Epstein long after everyone knew his criminal record. Internal compliance failures have since been acknowledged, but the broader question remains unanswered. How did a convicted sex offender retain access to the global banking system at the highest level? Who judged the risk acceptable and why? Further evidence of Mossad's fingerprints emerges in Epstein's dealings with international crises. Emails from July 2011, just a month before Muammar Gaddafi's fall, show Epstein and associate Greg Brown plotting to recover up to $80 billion in frozen Libyan funds, assets deemed sovereign, stolen, or misappropriated by Western powers. Brown believed the true amount could be 4 times higher, reaching to $320 billion. Their scheme involved leveraging MI6 and Mossad agents to extort concessions from post-war Libya, still assumed under Gaddafi's control, in exchange for returning the funds for so-called reconstruction. This wasn't mere opportunism. It points to Epstein's role in geopolitical maneuvering, using intelligence networks for financial and strategic gains aligned with Israeli interests. The conclusion, then, is not a lurid morality tale about bad people doing bad things, nor the tired revelation that royal celebrities or billionaires behave with impunity. That much is already obvious. Child abusers exist across every class and every society. What doesn't exist everywhere is a system that records, archives, weaponizes, and protects that abuse for strategic ends. The Epstein case points not to isolated depravity, but to structured leverage, an architecture of blackmail in which sexual crimes become instruments of power rather than grounds for prosecution. That is why the fixation on individual scandal, like princes, parties, and gossip, functions as misdirection. The real scandal is the evidence of an intelligence linked operation in which Mossad repeatedly appears as a point of reference, protection, and utility, an operation that embedded itself across politics, finance, media, and celebrity culture. Not all abusers are documented, and not all are shielded, and not all become untouchable. Epstein did because he was useful. Until this is discussed in those terms as a question of foreign influence, the story will remain trapped in spectacle, and the system it exposes will remain intact. Some people now claim that Jeffrey Epstein is not even dead, and probably he's free somewhere. I mean, if he's free, probably they flew him to Israel. But as I said, those are all conspiracy theories, right? Don't believe anything I said to you guys in this stream. All these documents, all these emails, all these logs, all these conversations, take it with a grain of salt, do your own research, come up with your own conclusions. And for YouTube, this was all a conspiracy theory. And there is nothing of this sort that we have discussed today, okay? Until then, guys, I would like to thank you for tuning in to today's stream. Every single one of you, thank you so much, whether on YouTube or on Rumble. Please leave a like, thumbs up before leaving this stream. Subscribe to Syriana Analysis and become a patron, or there are different other means in the description below. If you click in the description or in the first pinned comment under this video, you will find different ways to support this independent work I do on YouTube. Call it journalistic, call it commentary, call it political expertise or analysis. I'm trying to bring to you different topics and analyze them on this YouTube channel, whether it is geopolitics, and now we have a little bit about Jeffrey Epstein, which is, in my opinion, is not really far away from geopolitics. So if you like this, please support this show, and I will see you tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. Excuse me for that. Tomorrow, I'm unfortunately not able to do a stream. I really apologize for that. Tomorrow is, guys, Wednesday. I cannot do it, but on Thursday, I will do it, and on Friday, definitely with Tarek. So peace be upon you and upon your families, guys. Salam.